Hello, this is going to be a little tutorial, sort of a familiarization video on Openwrt, the completely fresh, vanilla, straight Openwrt for routers or routers. So first of all, how I'm going to do this is, instead of doing an incredibly long video tutorial and missing things out and forgetting things, as I've done several times, I've attempted to do this video so far today, I'm going to give you my written comprehensive notes, and I'm going to show you around the interface to give you a sense of what you're in for and how it works. Because once you kind of have an idea of what you're doing, it's a lot easier to work with, but it seems really daunting when you first see it. So first of all, you need a router that can actually handle straight vanilla Openwrt. So if you go into the link in the description, get to the firmware selector page, have a look for your brand and model of router, and if it shows up, you're good to go. So then if you go into the notes in this description, there's a long string of software. So copy that and click on Customize, click at the end, press space, and then paste in that blob and request a build. Then it will go away and bake that into the firmware, and it will come up with two blue lines telling you when it's succeeded. These will disappear while it's doing that, and when sysupgrade reappears after it's successfully baked in the software, you download this, and that's what you use to flash onto your router. So then you boot your router up once you flashed it and plug into it, and you'll see this after you go to the IP address 192.168.1.1. That's the standard IP. By default there is no password, so you can just hit login, and you can go, I'm not going to check for updates right now. Okay, then you can go to the password configuration, put your password in, save it. That's a good idea. And to get back to that screen, it's just system administration. And because of the software that you'll have baked into the firmware, you can come here to HTTPS and force it to deliver this config page to you via a secure page. Now in the meantime, you will get, if we just go here again, you will get an error message, because the encryption certificate it's using, it made it on its own, so there's no verification. It didn't come from like Google or DigiCert or whoever. So this is just to tell you that it doesn't have any kind of authority to it, but that's fine. It's just a device in our living room. So we'll proceed with that, and now at least the page itself is encrypted. Okay, which is nice. So under network, we've got interfaces. This is how you set up VLANs and interfaces. We've got the LAN interface here, and it's tied to the BR-LAN device, which is a bridge LAN. So if we go into devices, here's the BR LAN, and this is where you'll configure the MTU, depending on what you're following from my notes, and also the VLANs. So once you hit configure on BR-LAN, you can go to bridge LAN filtering, enable it, and start creating VLANs. So you figure, okay, number 1 will be my main LAN, 2 will be for my Internet of Things, IoT devices, bulbs, Alexas and things like that. 3 will be my guest network. And the important thing is you have to choose, these are your ports that you plugged into. You set, if number 1 is going to be your main LAN, you set that to untagged, because that's the one that you're going to connect to these particular ports. And then when you save it, don't apply, because you've got to come here over here to interfaces and make LAN use that number 1 that you just made by changing it like that. Now you can save it. Also, I cover, I think in the notes, disable IPv6. So anywhere you can find it, like IPv6 here, get rid of it, because it can cause leaks if you're doing VPN stuff. So anywhere you see IPv6, just delete it. So that's on the interface here, and in devices you can also get rid of it, if I remember correctly. I thought it was in here. Apparently not. Maybe it was on the VLANs. Anyway, wherever you see IPv6, just nuke it, get rid of it. It's not good. So that's how you set VLANs up. And in order to make interfaces, right, here we are back, it's on the number 1. So you just go to Network Interface, make sure you're on the Interfaces tab, and this is where you add new ones, and attach them to whatever VLAN that you're using. So we've already got one for LAN, so you can add one for number 2 and call it like IoT, and give it a static address. And you have to choose a different network for each of these VLANs. And put it on the one with 3 255s like that. You got your firewall zone. I covered that in the notes. Set up DHCP. Make sure the IPv6 is disabled. Under General, that's how you can push certain DNS servers, and it tells you here as a reminder. So if you, like me, prefer 1.1.1.2 and its backup 1.0.0.2 for some extra malware blocking type things, you can add that in, and when devices connect to your network, they will receive that DNS server so they can use it. So that's how we make interfaces, and this also is how you make VXLAN. You add a new one, and you choose VXLAN if you're doing a mesh network, and this is the thing that you bind into your BR LAN and tag it in. So you would put in the remote IP and the local IP. I covered that in the notes. I'm not going to go over that right this second. I'm just kind of giving you a flavor of what's involved. And it's also how you add WireGuard. So if you've got like Proton VPN, then this is how you would add in your VPN and paste in the config that they give you. I don't know if the notes have gone quite into detail about that, but I will quickly just show you an example, and I'll trash this in a few minutes. So once you go to proton.me and click on VPN, if you have a Proton subscription, or even the free one, it seems, they let you create WireGuard configs. So once you've picked your country and all that, you get a configuration that you can copy and paste in. So we'll paste that in here, import. So now it's put all the settings in. Then we'll give it a new firewall zone. Here's the peer that it's put in. We can name this. So we know exactly what this particular peer is for, and you only want one peer active. So if you've got a whole bunch of different countries that you've imported in here, disable all of them except for just the one that you want. So that's how you add on a VPN. If we go to Firewall, this is where your zones are, how you would set things up, how you choose what goes where. So if you've got, for example, like guest, you could either have them go straight over to the WAN for straight internet, or you could pipe them only to go over VPN. So that's how you deal with zones. Here also on the firewall menu, traffic rules. Here's where you add firewall rules about what can't happen and what can happen. So there's a couple of things in the notes that you can put in there to make things work. Like you have to add DHCP. So you would pick your, let's say, IoT, for example, and I forget the port off the top of my head, but you'd say, okay, from the source to the device, which is the router itself, give it the port. I think it's, in fact, let me have a look at my notes. 67 and 68. There we go. So we'd put that in, which would allow this new network that we've created to be able to get an IP address from the DHCP server. So that's, and you would give it a name, whatever you want, so that you know what it's about. So that's how you do firewall rules. Wireless, this is where you set your wireless networks up, your SSID. So if we remove these ones, so one of these radios will be your 2.4 gigahertz and one of them will be your 5 gigahertz. If you press add next to one, you'll see, oh, here we've got the 5 gigahertz. So you pick the channel that you want. All of your 5 gigahertz SSIDs will be running on one channel that you pick here. You give your network a name. That's what will show up on people's phones. You tell it what network it's attached to. So if it's your main LAN for your own personal use, you would tag it in with your LAN. If you're creating it a little bit more isolated for your IoT devices, then you'd give it the IoT network interface. For wireless security, you probably want this one, so that you can use the older thing for older devices, or if they support the new amazing one, then they can also use that. Put your Wi-Fi code in that you want. Make sure it's decent. You don't want people hacking it. Set your country so that you are compliant. United Kingdom. There's all sorts of things in there you can change that I'm not going to cover. But if you want to make, for example, on the guest network, if you want it to be completely isolated, you don't even want anyone who's on there to be able to see or mess with other people that are connected to it, then you can tick isolate clients and isolate bridge ports. This means that they can get internet, but that's it. They can't mess with other people's devices that are also on the Wi-Fi. You wouldn't want to do this really for an IoT network, because it will probably break things. They won't be able to talk to each other. One Alexa won't be able to communicate with another. It would be a nightmare. But for a guest network, then that's really, really nice to have. And this is also where you would make your mesh network, since that's baked into the firmware that you've created for your router. Instead of this being an access point to say, hey, I've got Wi-Fi, do you want to connect? You can change this to 802.11s and give it a mesh ID, and you would do this exact same thing on all of your routers. Give it the same ID, and you would attach it to an interface that you make for the backhaul, which is covered in the notes, and you have to use the strong security for the backhaul, because all your traffic, all VLANs are going over it, so you need a very long password. If you struggle making long random passwords, worst case scenario, you can go to grc.com/passwords.htm. I'll put the link in the description if I remember, and every time you refresh the page, yeah, this emulated rubbish internet I'm on at the moment is not fast, but every time you refresh the page it gives you new random passwords. So you could copy a big chunk of that, put that in as your backhaul password, and not really have to worry about it being cracked. So that's how you do that. And once you've got the mesh connected with the backhaul, the VXLAN is the thing that talks over that and is the thing that sends all the VLAN tags from your original main router over to the other router, so that when people connect to the SSID Wi-Fi's on your other router, it will send them over that tunnel over to the main network, so everything is all on the correct network, nothing is separated. So if you've got someone who's connected to the router in the living room, but then you've got someone who's connected to the router in the shed, it doesn't matter, they're still connected on the same logical network, they're not separated, if that makes sense. That's the purpose of the mesh, to push that. And because we're using Openwrt, we can push all of the VLAN tags so that we can rebroadcast all of them in the other location. So you've got your main one in the living room and you've got one that you've put in the shed. Well, that shed can now broadcast SSIDs for your IoT, for the guest, for the main network. They're all connected, you see, to the original network. So that's incredibly handy. Policy routing, you'll need this, especially for VPN stuff. So in order to create these rules, you want to make sure it's on strictly enforced. And in this policies section, you hit add, you give it a name, whatever it's about, guest VPN, and you put in the network that you're using for that. So let's go with right, so you would put in the side annotation version instead of just the IP address. You put the .0 on the end and then the /24. So that's the addresses that this applies to, and then you pick the next item that would be your VPN. So you're forcing people who are on that IP range to go over to the VPN. Right now I've only got one because I haven't set up the VPN. But that's all that's involved with setting up policy-based routing, PBR rules. And then you just save and apply. So that's how that works. Again, that's covered in the notes. Backup and firmware. So if you've set your router up really nice, generate a backup archive. So if you tweak something later on and you've totally royally screwed it up, you can just hold the reset button or whatever the process is for your router and factory default wipe it. Just come straight to this page and then upload that archive back to your router to put those settings all back on just the way you had it. It's really handy, and this is also where you can reflash the firmware. So if you make a brand new upgraded firmware and bake the software into that, you can upload it from this page. WatchCat, I've got the settings for this. This is so that if you've got a VPN on here, it will check to make sure it's working, and if it stops working, it will restart that particular interface. It's very easy, you just modify the settings. I have the specifics in the description notes, so I'm not going to cover that. This is just to familiarize you with the system before you attempt to follow the instructions. So if we go to network and DHCP, this is where we can see devices that are connected. If we go to network DNS, this is where you can change things to do with the DNS, and I cover this in the notes also, of removing the forwards or putting in the DNS that your VPN provider gives you, and disabling this, like to ignore the resolve file. There's just a little tick box here, click there, type that in. It looks really daunting when you first run it, and it did to me. And I had to spend days on AI, on Google Gemini and others, asking questions, and the tutorials were horrendously bad. I don't know how many times I bricked the router trying to get everything set up. But if you follow my notes, you should be in a better position, because I've set all this up myself on my own Flint 2 router, and my system is phenomenal. I love it. So there you go. That's basically kind of what you're looking at. It's not super complicated, but it's one of those things where you have to know why and what to do. And if you don't, then it can be quite headache inducing. So have a look at the notes in the description, and you'll be able to set up a really nice, really secure, quite feature rich system that will give you good signal and just be a really nice system to use that's secure. And by the way, something to know, if you have a router which has kind of gone out of its update period and they don't get updates anymore, if you can put Openwrt on it, chances are you'll still be able to get updates, even though the original manufacturer doesn't give updates anymore. If you can put Openwrt on it, and you'll know when you check that firmware selector, if you can see the latest version showing up after you've put your make and model in, then you can breathe new life into that thing. So there you go. If you found this interesting or useful, please like and subscribe, and I will see you on whatever the next video happens to be about. Thank you.